Hello and welcome. We are the Clodcast, and we are once again covering AGDL Power Rankings. My name is Ben, and I am here with the British Gambler, aka Roy.
Hello, I won 1.2k since last time we recorded.
Nice. Anyways, we are a little late on these. We are sorry. There was a lot of stuff coming in between everything, especially with our main league, the CPL, having started, and we had to cover 4 different PR videos there for 4 different divisions. But we have finally arrived here at AGDL, and yeah, we're gonna cover the teams 16 through 1. Unlike last time, the ranking system has changed a little bit. It's not. It's now basics, offensive core, defensive core, and support, and that will give you your total score. With the Terra captains now also on the slide, so you can see who has what Terra captain. But yeah, anyways, let's get into this, Roy, shall we?
Yes. By the way, I understand why you put what you put on the final side after looking at these teams.
Yeah. Okay then. We will start with number 16, who is Silver Ruby. So,
This is the team of all time.
this is a team, for sure. Um, Roy was even harsher to it than I was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's start. So, for the basics, you have every important typing except flying, which normally wouldn't be an issue if you picked up levitators or like good resists, but you only have one ground resist, which is a bomb snow, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't think you will bring a lot in an AG type of league.
You shouldn't be anyway.
Yeah, you shouldn't be, but if you do, okay. And if it comes, it's mostly gonna be like light clay aurora veils stuff. That's my guess at least. Speed tiers though look pretty fine. There is a significant gap between 60 and 86, but the rest looks fine. Ideally, you would want to put a Pokemon between Ogerpon and Dragapult speeds here as well, though.
Yeah.
Now then, let's get to the good bit about this team, and I think the only good bit about this team, which is the offense. So, for physical offense, we have Zacian Crown, obviously, Dragapult, Ogerpon, Heart Flame, we have Sharpedo Mega, we have Mimikyu, which with Sword Stance, yes, can be a good offensive Pokemon. Then Baxcalibur. And for the special side, we have Dragapult again, we have Sharpedo again. Although rare to see Mega Sharpedo sets with special, you can run it. Then Glamora and Ursaluna Blood Moon as well. So the offense is definitely like a very good part, and there's basically every Pokemon that is not Abomasnow can run a very offensive set.
And even a Bomberso can sometimes run. I mean, Blizzard does hit like a truck sometimes in certain matchups if a team's super weak wise. Also, the Terra captains, Baxcalibur and Glamora, are very good offensive Terra captains.
Yeah. Especially as well Baxcalibur, because with the hail you give up thermal exchange, so you can be burnt, but then you can just say, okay, fuck it, I'll go Terra Fire, can't be burnt anyways. Now then, to the bad parts about this team. This team's defensive core consists of Abomasnow.
Yep. This
That,
team gets very easily run over.
yeah, this team has, while this team technically on paper has 2 months with above 100 defense and 2 months with above 100 special defense, this is not an ideal scenario for those. While Zacian is obviously a boxer legendary, and it's in the crown form, so it is super bulky and has a good typing. But you have this massive issue where your bulkiest Pokemon is Zacian.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue,
Which
okay,
is not a Pokemon.
yeah,
Well, it's bulky, but
You can argue Ursaluna Blood Moon is good. It can be a good physical defensive one, but like if you run it physically defensive, you can't run AV or anything to boost your special defense, and then you get blown up on that side basically.
Yeah, because you have to then run Moonlight as well if you're using it as a offensive mon, and then you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, and then we also jump to the support where if you are running a so basically hyper offense team, you want a good supporting system for it. That means you want enough hazards, enough momentum, and possibly screens and lots of knockoff. You have one
Mhm.
knockoff mon. You have three
Yep.
momentum mons, which one will rarely click the momentum because it will rather get the speed boost and then try to clear. And then your hazard setter, while Gilmore is an amazing hazard setter, obviously, you only have one backup in a Spikes Ogerpon Heartflame.
And the removal is literally just Glamora.
Yeah. The removal is just Gilmore. You don't have Rapid Spin or Defog, so you don't even have reliable removal. Because every time you want to click Mortal Spin, they could just switch in their Steel type and say, yeah, no, you're not getting these hazards off. So it's either you somehow get that Mortal Spin off, or you have to basically run boot spam.
Yeah. This team is forced into boots in a lot of matchups, and also Ogerpon Heartflame and Mega Sharpedo can't run boots anyway. They're forced into certain items.
Yes,
And so is
exactly.
Station Crown actually as well.
Yeah.
Station Crown, this team's actually hard hit by spikes. Spikes are really good into this team.
Oh yeah. Considering that they also don't have a single flying type or any levitating Pokemon, yeah, spikes are massive. So yeah, a team has some huge issues. This team is obviously meant to win before the opposing team wins, but how often are you doing that if, let's say, okay, your Ogerpon is in, and suddenly they switch in a Lycanroc Dusk form? What's your switch in?
This team has to win games within 20 turns or they lose if they're facing a team with good hazards.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
will say this: not every team has good hazards. But if they're against a team with spikes, like one of my key strategies against this team would be, I'm going to lay spikes. I'm going to make sure I bring a steel type, lay spikes down, and just make it like near impossible for them to basically switch around because a lot of their mons just can't like basically run beats.
Yeah,
That's what makes it so much worse as well.
yeah. While you have some like good potential on this team, like you have a mini Snowcore, you have like decent speed tiers and like good offense. There is like a lot of stuff missing. Even like for the Trick Room mode that Ursaluna Blood Moon enjoys, you only have Mimikyu as a setter for that. So yeah, Silver Rupee at 16. Team can definitely improve a lot. This brings us to
Agreed.
number 15, who is Diamond, with the Terra Captains of Urshifu Rapid Strike and Ogerpon.
Hmm. I would have to say this team's removal might actually be worse than the last team, which we'll get into when we get to that section.
Yep. So, let's get over the typings. You're missing 4 typings. Fire and electric are not essential typings. They are nice to have typings, but not technically essential. But where you have an issue is that you neither have a dark or a normal type Pokemon. That means, as you can see, you don't have a single switch into Ghost type moves.
So Calyrex Shadow Rider just comes into this matchup and goes, Choice Spect Astral Barrage, die everything.
Yeah, basically. So, that's not ideal. Definitely not ideal. Also, considering you only have 2 Psychic type switch-ins, which one is Melmetal, which is not that bulky on the special side, only if it has the AV, so you're forcing it into items against good Psychic type Pokemon. And then the other one is Articuno Galar, which is okay in the bulk department, but you'd rather play it in an offensive-minded set. The speed tiers are also kind of an issue. Like the top speed tiers are pretty fine. Then you have a gap between 75 and 95. That means all Pokemon from 90 to 94 will run Adamant or Modest, which is not too big of a gap, but it is a gap to still note. And then the big problem
I'd
is
also argue, I'd argue that's a fake speed gap because it's a fucking Delibird at 75.
yeah,
So
so
I'm not respecting Delibird if I'm prepping.
yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Your 75 speed Pokemon is Delibird. That means you effectively have a speed gap between 95 and 34. That means everything from a Raging Bull to a Nidoking to like those will all run the attack boosting nature, which is not ideal considering your defense is also not necessarily the best. Yeah, let's get to the offense. Of course, physically you have Marshadow, Scolipede, Mega Diancie, Ogerpon, Urshifu Rapid, Zygarde, and Melmetal. Where the weakness is a little bit though, for special attacking side, you only have Articuno and Mega Diancie.
Mm-hmm.
While the Mega Diancie is obviously great, it's gonna be hard to fit Articuno Galar into every single match. Which just gives you the huge issue of, okay, my whole special offense will run through Mega Diancie. And that is not an ideal scenario. Because
No.
some people will just run a check into Mega Diancie and then just run fully physically bulky on the rest of their Pokemons, basically.
I will say this though, Mega Dance is very hard to have a blanket check for a lot of time, but at the same time, it's one mon you need to respect on the special side. Maybe I can allow if you have a bad matchup into it, but yeah,
Yeah.
without Terra, it's not that great. The Terra physical ones though are fucking like beast ones that can actually break through teams.
Yeah, the physical side is amazing, but the special side is where like a big issue comes because most games you want to bring Marshadow, Mega Diancie, you want to bring Ogerpon and Urshifu Rapid Strike, and then you probably need to bring Metal for the defensive purposes, and then you have one slot open which either goes to Zygarde, Articuno Galar, or Scolipede, or your single removal mon in Delibird.
Yep.
So yeah. For the defensive side, Mega Diancie pre-Mega can obviously take some hits, and after Mega still is not completely frail. And you have mons that are considered bulky, like the Zygarde and stuff, which are not necessarily defensive mons, but they're bulky. The only real mon I would call straight up defensive is Metal, because that can be really defensively invested with a lot of success. But the defensive score is that high because a lot of your mons have natural bulk, which just makes the team a better version of Silver's team because Silver's team has a lot of mons that are offensive but are frail, on the frailer side. This team also is more offensively minded but has a lot of mons that have good natural bulk.
Mm. I would actually say I do prefer Silver's team to this one though, personally, because we'll get to the support. Your removals Magic Bounce Yancey and Delibird. The pivoting is pretty lame as well. And this team just kind of also as well. Someone puts a trick free mode into them, they are kind of screwed outside of Melmetal.
Yep.
You move Melmetal, they just basically get absolutely run through.
But the thing that definitely helps is, for one, this team has lots of spikes. And Mega Diancie can in a pinch run the rocks if you really needed to. And what I think is also very good for a supportive perspective is the glare, especially like in Uber's format.
Yeah, Glare will be handy. I think Glare will help them get out some rough spots. Like, this is a team I can see winning matches if it's piloted well, but I don't think it's a good team.
Yeah, agreed. But yeah, that is Diamond at number 15. Brings us to number 14, which is Hundo Hunter. Yeah, Hundo has an interesting team, to say the
Yeah.
least. Their Terra Captains are Hoopa Unbound, Regieleki, and Combuskin. Two very great Terra Captains, and then one Pokemon that just has the Terra types slapped on, basically. So, let's get into the essential typings. You are missing a few typings. 6 to be exact. Ice, Rock, and Dragon are not necessary typings. The only one you would want to have, like, that's a nice to have is Dragon. Then we get to normal, ground, and steel. That you don't have a normal type is fine because you have one of the best like defensive slash utility dark types in Yveltal. So I'm not
Yep.
gonna count not having a normal type too badly. But the big issue here is you don't have a steel type and you don't have a ground type, which brings huge issues. Because for one, your electric type switches are Regieleki, which is not really bulky, and you're gonna Terra out of that resist most games. And then it's just
Yep.
basically on Venusaur. So any electric type that gets coverage to hit Mega Venusaur will have a field day on into this team. And
Like
then
a load and right shit, Kilowattrel. Yeah, basically anything with flying or psychic coverage, or even neutral coverage into it as well. Sometimes if it's physically.
yeah, and then we have the biggest issue, which is not having a steel type. Not having a steel type is one of the cardinal sins in draft because steel type's defensive profile is way too good to not have one. Like so, you are missing so many resistances, and you also don't have an immunity to poison, which is even worse because your only poison resist is Blacephalon, which is a paper mache Pokemon basically.
Yeah, honestly, like there is like I'm trying. Nagano wasn't drafted, I don't think, but any like poison attacker that has any decent like power can just spam into this team. Toxic's quite easy to spam as well into this team as well. And I think the steel probably wouldn't lack of steel probably wouldn't be as big of a problem. But looking at, I think we probably overrated their defensive core. I think their defensive core is actually worse than what we rated it because I look. We'll get to it when we get to it. But oh my god, is there a lot of this team frail, and I mean frail as fuck. Like
Yeah. Um, there is some positives to defensive core, which I will get into when we get there. But let's start with the offense for now. On the physical side, you have Regieleki, Formosa, you have Blacephalon is fake. It has a high attack stat, but it doesn't have the move pool to do it. Then you have Yveltal, Hoopa, Unbound, and Mega Venusaur. And technically also like niche combustion sword stance sets, but when is that ever coming? Like, let's be completely real. And then for the special side, Regieleki again, Formosa again, Blacephalon counts this time, Yveltal again, Hoopa Unbound again, and Mega Venusaur again. So a very good part about this team is that this team has very versatile offense. A lot of mons can be mixed or like go just naturally into one side more than the other. So I think that is definitely like a very good part about this team that the offense is very unpredictable basically.
yeah, I think the offense is just shining like this team.
Yeah, definitely.
That that and the removal, but yeah,
Yeah. Now to the defensive core. There's not a lot of defensive Pokemon. The only mons you can call truly defensive on this team are Mega Venusaur, Vaporeon, and the Yveltal. There's niche defensive uses for example, for Hoopa Unbound with like an AV set being a great special wall, but the rest don't really have a defensive niche at all.
yeah. Hooper Unbound could do. Honestly, Hooper Unbound is your steel type, which is a weird way to look at it. Yeah, I guess there might be some matchups where you can bring it Terra Steel and it will be a good defensive mon, but yeah, this team looks like it can get absolutely run through very quickly.
Yeah. Um, there is some good parts about the defense though, because there is some good defensive synergy with Venusaur and Vaporeon, because the weaknesses Vaporeon has, Venusaur takes up and resists them completely, while Vaporeon doesn't take the fucking types that Venusaur is weak to. Well, Yveltal helps with that in at least taking the psychic type moves. You are majorly weak to flying though. Like flying spam, like a hurricane spammer into this team will be very dangerous, especially if you Terra out of the electric type for Regieleki.
Lugia is going to have a field day with this team.
Oh yeah. And then we get to the biggest downfall of this team, which is support. While you have you have good knockoff support, you have pretty good momentum, you even have wish support, and you have good removal. Your only hazard is sticky webs.
Yep,
You can
it's the it. it's ridiculous. So every team now into this team, unless you're scared of webs, you just can get away with not running beats.
Exactly. Like, even for like these niche situations, you at least want rocks for something. Like, you don't have any hazard that is not sticky web. And while sticky web can be good for you in situations, of course, your team is naturally already pretty fast, so you don't really rely on the sticky webs. Especially, like, the only mons that really benefit hard from the sticky webs are something like Hoopa Unbound and maybe Blacephalon. The rest are fast enough to not care about the sticky webs anyways. So you are just putting your offense into a situation where they cannot get kill ranges because you cannot even set up hazards to get chip damage.
I really don't see why they drafted Rabombi out of all things on this team. It just doesn't make sense. Like, you already have, by the time they drafted Rabombi, they already had Pheromosa on the team as well, fast offense. They had Reggie Alecki, like two of the fastest mons that you could have. I don't see why you've wanted sticky webs on this team. I really don't. That's the bit of the team that's most baffling to me. And total shoot, I don't know what combustion does, but if it was me, wait, did they get combustion like round 4, 5? Is this done in order when they
I'm not
drafted
quite
them?
sure. This might just
Or
be they picked it up in Grace or something. I didn't follow the
okay,
draft too actively.
total shoot, like combustion, I imagine is 1 point. I don't know. Loki, honestly, drop combustion for something like Porygon. That at least gives you something in that slot for 1 points that might actually come to a game, and it can be a fake steal. It can be a steal type. It can be like it can cover some of your holes. But Rabombi is a bit. I would be switching out for like a ground or a steel type and getting some hands. Just getting like a spiker. If like Loki, Sanaconda. Sanaconda might be good on this team.
Maybe, yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
I'm a Sanaconda hater.
This team, like, this team immediately improves by a bunch if it has reliable hazards. But yeah, that is Hando Hunter's team at number 14. Which brings us to number 13, who is Firebro. We're finally looking at teams that are not completely This is now a step above, I think, the bottom three tiers, the bottom three
Yeah.
teams, because this team has some structure. For typings wise, you're only missing normal type, which under normal circumstances, if you have a bulky enough dark type, is not an issue. But your dark type is specifically King Gambit. Why that is an issue is you don't want to have King Gambit as your sole dark slash steel type in most situations, because unless you can Terra it, you're gonna have a problem with any ghost type that gets fighting coverage, which is in this day quite a lot get Focus Blast. So it's the same with the psychic types. Quite a lot of psychic types get either Mystical Fire or Focus Blast. So you're putting yourself into a situation where you don't have the advantage. Speed tiers wise, the team looks pretty fine though. Nothing really to complain except for like the 85 to 55 gap, but it's not too big. It's just some specific ones like Raging Bolt, for example, that will run Modest, which is a mon that likes to run Modest anyways. And then like the gap between Zeraora and Ogerpon should probably be close with something in between, but if you couldn't get anything, that's just it, you know. Then we get to the offensive core. Physically, we have Ogerpon Cornerstone, we have Salamence, we have Great Tusk, we have King Gambit, and we technically have Zeraora, although it's a fucking fake one. It's so ass.
It's on forward watch.
Yeah. Especially, it's basically only Calyrex Shadow. While if you only have one special attacker, ideally it's Calyrex Shadow, but again, you have a situation where if somebody has a blanket check to Calyrex Shadow, you have an issue where your special offense is not that great.
I will give them some credit. I slightly disagree on this because I do think they do have some special offense, and I'm not including Sarah in that. Salamence can actually very viably,
Viably, yes, Roy,
thank you, viably.
viably.
I was right. Okay. Run like special sets as well. It has pretty good special attack, and while it's not as minion, it can run it. Feeny can as well with some setup sets, so it does. They do have some, and a real push if you're desperate, Sarah, but no. So I don't think it is mostly Calyrex Shadow, but Salamence has the option. So I'd actually prefer if Salamence was Terra. Salamence was Terra, then I'd actually definitely count it as a second special offensive mon.
Yeah,
I'd actually prefer that as Terra over Fini.
I don't get the reason why Fini was Terra, personally. I
Same.
don't. Fini's
Tusk and
typing.
Salamence would be goated
Yeah,
Terras.
Fini's typing is already very good, and it doesn't get terrible as so there's no real big advantage you get from Terraing except for like having a different defensive type in a situation.
Yeah. Mence would be a much better Terra on this team.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Now then, let's get to the defensive core. The defensive core consists of Grey Tusk, Tapu Fini, King Gambit, Salamence, and technically also Eevee-like Magmar. Swalot you can kind of count into it, but it is, even though it has 100 HP, it is rather on the frailer side.
Yeah, it does get Pain Split now, though.
Yeah, still not great, though. There's a reason
No,
it's number
there's
one.
reasons it's a one pointer. There's reasons it's a one pointer. It's one of
Yeah.
the best one pointers, but it's not a good one.
The big issue for one is your massive ground type weakness. You do have Salamence, which kind of alleviates this issue a little bit, but you also always have to be careful because a lot of good ground type Pokemon do get the rock coverage, which can hit Salamence. And you definitely run into an issue when you run into a mon like Mamoswine, for example, which just kills Salamence straight up. So there's like specific matchups where you hard lose to a ground type, but I think in general the defense of course is pretty fine. It could of course be better because like on the special side it's hard carried basically by the Tapu Fini because Grey Tusk is not really known for the special defense. Magmar is not a reliable defensive Pokemon. And then your next high special defensive mon is Calyrex Shadow. While it can take a hit, it cannot take a Ghost type or a Dark type hit, for example. And
And you don't want it having to take hits anyway, like if I'm being honest.
yeah, like you want to have the Calyrex Shadow as healthy as possible, especially in a meta where like it's gonna get people will have Shadow Sneaks or Sucker Punches for it specifically prepped. But yeah, that brings us to the support of this team. The hazard support is kind of dull. You're kind of forcing rocks on Great Tusk a lot because King Gambit, while it can run rocks, it often has like a problem running rocks because it likes to run different moves, especially in Natdex formats. Ogerpon Cornerstone can spike reliably though, and if you're really in a pinch, you can bring this wallet for T-spikes. Removal is also
Yeah.
decent. Great Tusk obviously loves to spin, is one of the best spinners in the game. Fini can defog, although it doesn't like defogging to lose its terrain. And Salamence, if you bring it in a sort of defensive slash supportive set, you can definitely run defog on it. The momentum is pretty weak. It's basically Ogerpon plus Zeraora, because Magmar is not a reliable teleporter.
Calyrex does apparently get Baton Pass, which I didn't know it got, so I guess you can do that.
I guess so, yeah. You can at least
I mean,
escape. There is a funny thing with that. You can escape pursuits with that, because pursuit does not follow Baton Pass.
Oh, that's actually handy tech. Okay, I didn't know that tag. But yeah, I honestly, because Calyrex often only needs to have like, there was some we racing one team that basically they can just run basically Shadow Ball. They can fit Baton Pass on, so I'd say that they've got three like momentum ons. I'm
Yeah.
not counting Magmar, even though I've used Teleport Magmar before. It's not the worst, but I wouldn't count it as a good one.
Yeah, you do have Wish support in Salamence, which is actually pretty nice because a lot of people forget that Salamence gets Wish for one, and it is actually a pretty good Wisher considering its HP stat is still 95, which is nothing to scoff at, really.
This is again why I think it really should be Terra over Finny, because you can then run defensive Salamence as well a lot easier, change its typing, like Terra Steel, for example, or just Terra Flying, just so it's not 4x weak to ice. You can do some fun things with it, like.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously you have a shit ton of mons that can reliably run knockoff, which is also very good, helping you in some situations. Because for one, your ghost type is also not a ghost type that clicks Poltergeist, so you're pretty fine to click knockoff any fucking day of the week. But yeah, Terra the Salamence and maybe get something else than Magmar.
Yeah. Or if you have to sacrifice the Magmar to get the Terror on the Ments, then yeah, just get something else low tier that just works.
Exactly. Because the problem with Magmar is it has to hold the Eviolite to be
Oh,
really bulky, and then it gets rocks.
sorry, I just realized. Sorry, I basically realized one other weakness for the team. They do not. They're very resistant to Swalot and Magmar.
Yeah,
That's iffy.
that's a problem that you have if you run King Gambit as your Soul Steel, yeah. But yeah, that is Firebro at number 13. Brings us to number 12, Nobody, who is actually, I think, a replacement for a guy called Samuel that was originally there. They kept the exact same team, though, as far as I saw.
Kind of respect it. Probably could tweak it though, but I respect it.
Yeah, let's get into it. For typing spells, you're only missing Rock and Normal. Your Dark type here is Crocodile, so I can say, okay, it's fine that you don't have a normal type, as Crook can pretty reliably take on Shadow Balls and Poltergeists, especially with Intimidate. Then for the speed tiers look pretty solid. Nothing really to complain. Like, there is a gap between Thundy and Fluttermane, but it's not too big of a gap where you can really complain about it hugely. The rest looks pretty fine, honestly. Then we get to the offensive core. Physically, it's Metagross, Mega Heracross, Giratina Origin, Crocodile, and some niche Thundurus sets. And especially you have Fluttermane, you have Thundurus, you have Giratina Origin again. There is niche Pheasantipede sets with Nasty Plot or Calm Mind. Then there's niche special Metagross sets. You rarely run those, but they are there. Yeah, I think the offense is pretty solid. It's gonna be interesting how many of your offensive Pokemon you can bring every week, because this team also likes its defensive pieces a lot. Then for the defensive core, you have the Crocodile, you have the Pheasantipede, you have Giratina Origin, which can take some hits, obviously, because it's a Boxar Pokemon and has enough bulk on it. Mega Heracross can take some hits in a pinch. Metagross, obviously, especially with Terra, can take hits. Walrein is good into situational matchups, and Amoonguss is also a good, like, splashable defensive mon with Regenerator.
Walrein just feels like a last pick of like, I do have a water type. Fuck it, I'll get a water type that answers bundle. Which honestly, if you're gonna get a water type later on, something like Lapras or Walrein's not the worst thing to get, because with Terra they can actually do new stuff. Like they are not they're not terrible mons with Terra.
Yeah.
Not great mons, but they're good enough.
Yeah, exactly. And then to the support, which is probably the worst part about this team, because this team, you have to put hazards on Crook or Metagross. Crook and Metagross can both run it reliably, but sometimes you want them in a more offensive role, obviously. Your Soul Spiker is Heracross, which is kind of a letdown, because especially Mega Heracross has 4 moveset syndrome, because it wants Trailblaze, it wants all the moves to hit everything, and then sometimes it wants Sword Stance as well, or Bulk Up. Your removal is also only defog, so you will always remove your own hazards. And then you have pretty bad momentum as well. You only have Pheasantipede and Thundurus as good momentum, which kind of sucks for you, because you want to get in some threats more often than not. You have a lot of reliable knockoff clickers, I'll give you that. You have a mon that can click Trick Room and can click Wish, but it's Fluttermane. You don't really have a Trick Room mode, so it's not that important to click Trick Room, but your Wish support being Fluttermane is how do I say it?
It's not Wish support.
Yeah, it's not Wish support.
No.
And considering
I'm using a Fluttermane in a league at the moment, and I'll tell you this honestly now. I know it's got Wish. I've never ever considered running Wish in any matchup, and I've run some niche stuff on that Fluttermane.
Yeah.
Shout out to I'll send Ben the set I'm running this week as well. Because it does have a niche thing it can do.
Yeah. Why not having wish support on this team is pretty bad is that the only two mons with reliable recovery on your team are Moongus and Pheasantipity. The rest cannot recover their HP at all. Especially something like Giratina Origin also likes the wish support just to be able to come in more often. And then Crook and Metagross, which are some of your defensive pieces as well, can't do any recovery, so they can come in infinite times. And especially with some teams' offenses we've seen so far, you would like to keep your defensive pieces alive as much as possible, basically.
I will say this. I just realised I changed the set as well because I was going to do something different. It can Fluttermane. It can run Imprison Trick Room to block the Trick Room mode against this team. So that's something it can do support wise. But so that is a tiny point in support. But yeah, because Fluttermane actually gets a lot of support moves and often only needs Shadow Ball and Moonblast. It doesn't need anything else.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It can also do Imprison Trick Room.
Yeah. But yeah, that is nobody's team at number 12. Which brings us to number 11, Gabrielito, with Terra Captains, Zarude, and Noivern. So, let's get into the basics. We're missing 6 types, which a lot of them are not necessary types. The only one that is kind of bad that you don't have is normal, just because your dark type is also a Terra Captain of yours. So you do kind of often lose the dark typing, and then Psychic Spam gets pretty free.
Because I will say this, like Zarude, out of the 2 types it has, it's mostly staying dark. But there will be matchups you want to change its Terra typing, so then you no longer have a Ghost Resist. They also actually, I will say this: they could do with an Electric type because their Seal type is neutral against flying.
Yeah. So, well, you do have like some good mons that fill out your type, some of your typings well. Some mons could be used better. Let's get into the offensive core though. Physically, you have Iron Valiant, Zarude, Palafin, Mega Scizor, and Dhelmise. And especially you have Iron Valiant, Noivern, then some niche Palafin sets, Kyogre, of course. So the offense is set up pretty well. I do really like that you paired Kyogre with Palafin as well, because Palafin in Rain is a very dangerous mon. But
Yeah, I honestly, Mega Scizor of Rain as well is really good as well.
yeah, the pairing with Mega Scizor is also pretty great. You can't even lie. Just making the Mega Scizor even more defensive and getting like a little bit of support boost here. For the defensive core, there are some weaknesses, of course. While you have some monsters that are naturally bulky, like Zaru, Palafin, and Kyogre, they're not gonna run defensive sets most of the time. The only mons that I would classify as naturally defensive are Mega Scizor, Dhelmise, and Clodsire, which all can reliably run defensive sets.
I mean, I guess Graveyard as well. Like if we're counting that as a mon, because that can run Fluffy with Aviolite, but that is also about it.
Yeah. And also Graveyard is not really a mon. It's just there for funsies, maybe a last respects click or something.
Yeah. Is last respects allowed?
It's anything goes, so I'm pretty sure it is, yeah.
Okay, that'd be quite cool. That honestly has some fun tech then.
There's also to note that there's only I actually see now Last Suspects is banned, so that is actually not a factor. But Hidden Power is allowed.
Okay.
Because I do not see
That makes
Hidden Power ban.
That makes honestly the rain much better for Mega Scizor as well because it stops random hidden power fires killing it.
Yeah, but that makes the ghost the situation with ghost and psychic types even worse, because psychic types will put on specifically the hidden power fire for the Scizor. So yeah, it is like you do have some good defensive pieces. some weaknesses are obviously there. For one, the Ghost type weakness as mentioned, and the Psychic type weaknesses as soon as you Terra these are root. With hidden power allowed and all. And then the flying type weakness is also pretty big. You don't have a single mon that switches into flying type moves, which creates a kind of a problem for you because while you do have rain, which helps your Pokemon, you also have rain that helps monster click Hurricane. And since you don't have a Hurricane switch in, that is kind of a minus point for you.
Yeah.
And then for the support, you have reliable knockoff clickers. You have decent momentum. You have momentum on 4 mons, which is pretty good. You have a mon that can click Trick Room for something like Dalmise in very niche situations.
I wouldn't count Iron Van. I don't know if Iron Van ever run in Trick Room.
Yeah, probably not, but technically it can, so I did list it. Then your removal is fine. You have 2 mons that can run Defog if they really want to, and you have a mon that can reliably click the Rapid Spin. Especially because no Spin Blocker really wants to switch into Dalmise. And you do have a hazard sighted, but it's only Clodsire, so there's a little bit of an issue with that. Because you're if you want specific ranges, you always have to bring Clodsire, which in some matchups you might not want to because of the sheer amount of good Pokemon you have on your team. But yeah,
I agree.
I feel like this team is pretty good. Like some changes could be made, of course, but I feel like this team works the way it is. You do have to be careful how you tear it as a route, though. I feel like. But yeah, that's Gabrielito at number 11. Which brings us to number 10, Ida Dam. With Terra captains of Diancie, Thundurus T, and Archaludon. Now then, we have a rain team. With some other mods to put on there as well. So, let's go over the typings. You don't have a few typings. The biggest problem with a typing you don't have is probably Ghost, so you don't have an immunity to fighting or normal, but you have enough switch-ins to both, so I think it's fine. The bigger problem is poison. You don't have a T-Spike absorber.
Yep.
So,
I would also say as well, their steel types are both steel dragon, so they don't have a fairy resist.
yep.
And their dark type is a Urshifu single strike.
Mm-hmm.
Which honestly feels really out of place on this team. Everything
Yeah.
else I can see the logic for. I'm a bit confused by Urshifu single strike, I'll be honest.
Yeah. The problem with Urshifu Single Strike being your dark type is that Urshifu Single Strike cannot switch in well into special moves because its special defense stat is only 60. So, Shadow Ball spam is very viable into you because you also don't have a normal type. Speed tiers wise, it's okay. There is a little bit of a problem I have that is Lugia being the fastest mon, and Lugia necessarily doesn't run speed. So technically, your fastest Pokemon outside of rain is Thunder's Therian. Of course, you have rain sweepers like Poliwrath and Mega Swampert, which will be faster in rain, but outside of rain, it's basically Thundy T and Lugia if you do run speed on it. Then for the offensive core, first of all, it's a rain team. The offensive core is probably always going to be good.
Yeah. Defensive core is very good on this team.
Yeah, we have physically for physical offense, we have Urshifu Single Strike, we have some niche Dialga origin sets, we have some niche Archalon sets, but we also have Mega Swampert, we have Beartic, and we have Poliwrath, and some Diancie sets as well that can work under with physical. And for the special side, we have Lugia sets, obviously, with Calm Mind that will be very annoying, Thundurus T. Then we have Dialga Origin, we have Archaludon, then we have Diancie again. Even Pelipper is can be very threatening in rain, so the offense is very amazing on this team.
There's no flaws with the offense. It's like it hits like a truck. My criticisms with it come down to some of the other stuff with the defenses. That's where the problem is at.
Yeah, this is where we get now into the defenses. For one, we've mentioned it before, you don't have a single fairy type switch in. And your ghost type switch in is Urshifu's single strike, which is not a reliable ghost type switch in. Now, you have some outs, obviously. You have a Terra Archaludon and Terra Diancie, which can just Terra into any type you need for a specific matchup and just make your defensive profile better. More of a problem is that you need to Terra first before making that happen, and sometimes you just can't get the Terra off early enough. And then obviously the big weakness is that you don't have a poison type. So T-Spikes are very viable in your team, even though you have 3 months that are flying types and will not be affected by the T-Spikes, the rest will.
I will say this, they do have 2 steel types. I don't know if it's the end of the world on this team. It's just one of them obviously will probably... Yeah, it is annoying. Like, it is something that maybe in the right matchups it can be a pain, but I will say I think there could be... Considering their basically strength regarding what they have in regards to poison, they're probably okay without one here.
Yeah.
They do have a poison type though, just because of the fairy weakness.
Yeah. What I would change maybe is drop one of Beartick or Poliwrath, because I don't think they are too like, especially Poliwrath, it needs to get off a belly drum first or something to be very threatening in rain. And in a AG format, you rarely get those off. Beartick can be good in niche situations, but I would suggest dropping one and just getting a poison slash or a ghost type, just for one to help with the fighting weakness a little bit, and obviously a grounded poison always helps to not have a timer on some mons.
Yeah.
Then
honestly, I think if you combine the Diancie and the Poliwrath, you might have enough points for a Tentacruel. Tentacruel might help as well, actually,
yeah,
because it gives you an extra spinner.
Yeah, which I did want to get into. While you have a lot of rockers and a lot of monster can click rocks, you also have Diancie Spikes, which is pretty reliable. You have a problem with the fact that your own hazards will never stay on the field because your only removals defog.
Yep.
So maybe something like Tentacruel would help here, yeah. Just because it also works in rain because of Rain Dish and stuff, and then you get a spinner and a poison type, so that would be quite nice. Your momentum is pretty decent as well. You have a lot of monsters can click U-turn, and then you have a flip turner and even a baton passer technically. You have a trick room mode for Diancie, and technically also Beartick outside of rain if you want to do that. Knockoff can be reliably clicked by Swampert and sometimes Pelipper, but it's weird because Pelipper needs some other stuff oftentimes, because it needs Scald, it needs Hurricane, it needs Roost, it needs Defog, it needs U-turn. So Knockoff can rarely be a fit on Pelipper. And Thunder T
Yeah, I don't really want
is
to
more of a special mon. You will never fit Knockoff, basically. But yeah, I do think this team works well with what it is. Like, a few tiny tweaks would make this team a lot better. Like getting an actual fairy resist that's from the get-go, which would coincide with getting a poison type. Because I don't think you need Poliwrath and Beartick. Like, one of them is fine. Both are a little overkill in my opinion.
Yeah, and also if it synergizes as well, Tentacruel, because it gets Rain Dish as well, so you get healing on it every turn.
Yeah, so if you want to do that, do that. If you don't, just grab a low tier poison type maybe. But yeah, that is Idadam at number 10. Brings us to number 9, who is Rhino Shark. I think this is now where the teams start to get pretty good. Let's get into it.
There's flaws with this team, but I do like it overall.
Yeah, this team is not missing any essential typings. The only 2 types they are missing are Rock and Fire. Fire is of course nice to have, but not necessary. And Rock is just a bad typing, so you don't need to have it. Speed tiers wise, it's also pretty fine. There's a gap between Audino and Boswell, of course, but it's not too important of a gap because most of these mons don't run speed anyways. Yeah, the offensive core physically consists of Meowscarada, Iron Treads, Darmanitan, Galar, and Boswell. Especially though, you have Miraidon and Manaphy and Slowking Galar. Why is that a little bit of an issue? Because the only thing that packs a punch out of the gate is Miraidon. Manaphy and
Yeah.
Slowking both need some setup or offensive item to work great as special attackers.
Yeah, you do need to basically set up with Manaphy who's going to start hitting. Soaking Galar can hit inside a Trick Room with Life-Orb, but that is a niche situation matchup thing.
Yeah, exactly. I do think the offensive core is pretty good, though. I think Roy underrated a little bit, maybe because especially the physical side with Darmanitan and Buzzwole, a Terra Buzzwole and a Terra Darmanitan is very scary.
Yeah, honestly, I weighed it lowly because of the special offense. I do actually strongly rate Terra Domanitan and Terra Buzzworld. Buzzworld's actually one I want to try for a long time with Terra just because it looks quite fun. And I used to love using Buzzworld in Gen 8. But yeah, I just felt it was a bit, it needed too much support on the special side to get to properly pop off. Hence why I rated it a bit low. I will say Drifloon could be a fun mon on this team as well.
Yeah, but it's okay. For defensive purposes, we have Iron Treads, we have some niche Manaphy sets, then we have Mega Audino and Slowking, and some niche Driftblim Buzzwole sets. So, most of your defense will rely around Mega Audino, Slowking, and Iron Treads because you don't really want to invest too much into Buzzwole, Driftblim, and Manaphy. You rather want to use them offensive or in Driftblim's case, supportive. And then for the support, hazard support is kind of rough because you're forcing rocks on treads basically when you want hazards, or you're forcing spikes on Meow. T-spikes you also have Slowking Galar to set them, but Slowking Galar also sometimes has 4 move slot syndrome, so sometimes hard to fit. Removal wise, you have a great spinner in Iron Treads, but your removal default removal is only Driftblim.
Which is a problem.
Yeah. It's basically gonna be Iron Treads having to run removal every time, and people will know it runs the removal, so they will do something against it. So, I do think you have to be careful there. Getting a backup that is not Driftblim might be good for this team, but it can technically work out with just Treads. Momentum support is great, though. You have 4 monsters can click U-turn. Then you also have the Volt Switch from the Iron Treads as well. You even have Baton Pass on Driftblim, and Chidley Reception on the Slowking Galar. So this team gets in and out very quickly, which I think is great. Knockoff clicks you have as well. A lot of them reliable, I would say, are probably only the Meowscarada and Treads. Because the other mons don't wanna run knockoff necessarily. They can in a pinch, but it's more on Meow and Treads. And then you also have Wish support with Mega Audino, which can be quite nice to have in a pinch situation.
I've seen it do work. Mega Audino can do work on the right team. It is a mon that you do need to know how to use it or be a stall player like Ordinary, but you can make it work as a mon.
Yeah, exactly. I do think Roy was a little harsher on this team than needed be because I do think this team is pretty great, but it has some minor flaws in my opinion.
I think this is one of the last teams I got to, and there were some teams I saw just before it, so I was feeling in quite a harsh mode. That might be why I saw that this team might. I think this is actually a pretty good team. Just on paper, I think it's missing some things. Like I do actually think this is a good team, but I probably was harsh on it because I think this was around the time I got to the team with Delibird as the removal and the team with no rocks, no spikes. And I'm like, oh my god, what are these? I was like, oh my god, okay, I need to be harsh on these teams.
Yeah.
A lot of these teams are missing stuff.
Yeah, understandable. Now then, let's jump to number 8, which is Tay, 4101. With the Terra Captains Gliscor, Sinistra, and Talonflame. So, for typings, you're not missing any necessary typing except Poison. And for this team, Poison is actually quite annoying not to have, because while you have Gliscor and Magnezone, which obviously ignore... Gliscor, Magnezone, and Talonflame, which obviously ignore the Poison, the rest does not appreciate the T-Spike.
Yep.
But yeah, speed tiers wise, speed tiers look pretty fine. Nothing really to complain about. There is somewhat of a gap between Gliscor and Roaring Moon, so something in the 110s to 105s would close that gap would be ideal, but if you couldn't get anything that fits your team, that's just the way it is sometimes. Now then, to the offensive core. Physically, we have Roaring Moon, we have Zamazenta, and we have niche Mega Mewtwo Y sets, although it's more of a special attacker, obviously. Especially, obviously, as just mentioned, Mega Mewtwo Y, we have Sinistcha, we have Primarina, and we have Magnezone. There's some niche offensive sets, obviously, with Talonflame, which can run Sword Stance, Gliscor, which can run Sword Stance. And then Indeedee can be offensively somewhat threatening, so none of your team can really be ignored in the right circumstance, which is a good thing, because everything can run somewhat of an offensive mode. Obviously, the big offensive mons here are Mewtwo Y, Roaring Moon, and Zamazenta. And then you have some backup mons for the offense, which is pretty great. For the defensive core, you have mons that can run defensive sets reliably in Magnezone, Prim, Sinistcha, Gliscor. Talonflame is more of a support mon, same with Indeedee, but and Zamazenta can also obviously run defensive sets. So, there's some very good defensive uses your team has. There's obviously the problem with the T-Spike weakness, which does harper some of your defensive mons like Sinistcha and Primarina. Gliscor and Magnezone are obviously unaffected, but Prim and Sinistcha don't necessarily like being poisoned.
Yeah.
There's also no two big weaknesses on the defense, on the defensive side. Maybe the flying, but you have Magnezone, which is a pretty good flying type switch in. As ice could be a little bit of a problem, but then again, you again have the Primarina and the Magnezone, which can switch in. So I think you're set pretty well on the defensive side. Obviously, the T-Spike weakness is again pretty big because your defense, like the only ones that ignore the T-Spikes are Talonflame, Gliscor, and Magnezone.
I think it will force in some matchups and should actually run boots before Terror in because it's probably going to want to Terror poison a lot of the time, Terror steal a lot of time, but it's going to have to run boots as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get to the support. Hazard setting support, it's only Gliscor, which is not ideal. While Gliscor is obviously amazing in the hazard setting department, it already has 4 move slot syndrome. Don't put that mon under more pressure than it already has. Then you have 2 mons that run defog. One is Talonflame and the other one is Gliscor, so again, Gliscor for move slot syndrome getting even worse. Then Talonflame can run it reliably, even sometimes get like a priority defog off with Gale Wing, so that can be quite nice. But you want to have a rapid spinner in the case that you want your own hazards to stay up. Momentum support is pretty decent. You have 3 U-turners, 1 flip turner, 1 volt switcher, and then even a baton pass in the Indeedee, and even teleport with Mewtwo and Magnezone, although the Magnezone would rather run the Volt Switch, and Mewtwo rarely fits the teleport.
Yeah.
You have somewhat of a Trick Room mode as well with Magnezone and Prim. While they are not the best Trick Room users because they're a little too fast for Trick Room, they can do it in niche situations, or with something like Room Service. Knockoff situation is basic. It's basically Roaring Moon again, because Gliscor again has this 4 move slot syndrome where you are forcing it to do way too much than it actually wants to do.
Yeah, because also as well, like there is some teams we've already seen that basically you can run a Trick Room mode that's not a normal Trick Room mode, but it can absolutely go in on a team as well. Because their speed tiers are so like very top heavy. But I actually think, unironically, in anything goes formats, Trick Room's a little better because you've got some mons that actually can set it up and also like get out quite easily as well. See Moderna.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some issues with the team, but I think the team in general is very good. Nothing to complain about too big, except that you're putting Gliscor in. Gliscor basically has 6 different jobs and has to hold up the whole family alone. But yeah, that is Tay at number 8. Brings us to number 7, which is Mr. Monkey. So, for the basics on Mr. Monkey's part, you are missing a poison and a ghost type, which are good typings to have. Why would you want to put a Ghost on this team? Your only normal type switching is Mega Mawile, and while you have Zapdos and Mew to switch into fighting types, you also have a Terra Mew, so you're oftentimes tearing out of that Psychic type for the fighting resistance. And Poison, as
Yeah.
mentioned before, T-Spikes, especially in a team where only one Mon is above the ground, is pretty bad. While Mega Mawile ignores the T-Spikes as well, the rest does not.
Yeah. Especially on, and we'll get to more on Ditto later. Ditto is one, especially you don't really want to be getting T-Spike because it's got very low HP.
Yeah. Speed tiers look pretty decent. There's a little bit of a gap between 72 and 90, which is to mention. Then obviously between 72 and 50. Not too essential. These speed gaps are not too essential because there's only some specific monsters that are in those gaps, but still something to watch out of. And obviously the big gap between Mew and Cyclizar is a little annoying because you want something in the 110s to 105s to have something available there. Then to the offensive core, you have on the physical side Mega Mawile, Serena, Primal Groudon, some Mew sets, some Cyclizar sets, and some Greninja sets. Especially you have Greninja, Mew sets, Zapdos sets. Primal Groudon also can be good, very good specially, because it still has 150 special attack.
I'd add Ditto to both sides as well, because Ditto can also basically copy whatever your opponent is. And if they've got a big beastie like threat that their own team is weak to, now you've got that big beastie threat.
Exactly. For the defensive core, it relies a lot on Mew, Zapdos, Serena, Groudon. Because while Mawile can take some hits in situations, it's not really a reliable defensive Mon. Cyclizar can take a hit, but then most of the time it needs to get back out. Because it's not that good defensively, it's more of a come in one time switch up Mon. So, a lot of the weight is on Zapdos, Mew, and Primal Groudon.
Yeah.
Serena,
I would
obviously,
say, well, look at this.
as well.
Serena's actually quite good. I would say if there's one tweak I'd make to this team, and it's going to sound like really weird, but hear me out. I would drop Lechonk for Marini, because Marini gives him a grounded poison and a backup defensive water type.
I guess so.
I mean, yeah, because I think actually most of the teams are good, but like for like 1 point, if Marini's available for 1 point, that's actually better used than getting Lechonk. Just get the 1 point like Marini because it gives him a grounded poison and a bulky water type as well.
Yeah, I think so. I guess it can work, yeah.
Because yeah, it's not like they need a normal type either as well. They've got normal type already.
Yeah. Now to the support. You have all four monsters that get knockoff can click it reliably. You have a trick room mode with Mew for the Mega Mawile. You have a shit ton of momentum. You have very good removal. And you have very good hazard setting.
Mm-hmm.
What's one gripe? I don't know. I feel like some of the like obviously Mew does a lot for the support here in every aspect, but Mew is kind of I think forced into a more supportive role on this team. While with Terra Mew, you can also obviously very easily go on offensive set. It feels like it works better if you use it supportive here. But yeah,
I also think as well, Ditto also adds like a bit of a supports with acting a like fuck it last minute button as well because it supports the team by forcing the opponent to consider it in prep. They will have to consider their own setup against them when they're prepping against Ditto, or they could easily get reverse swept.
yeah. So I think this team works very well. Obviously, maybe getting a poison type or a ghost type would be ideal because you do have a big fighting type weakness and you don't have something to splash into the T spikes. So yeah. Outside of that, team works pretty well. Can't really complain too much. Yeah, that is number 7, Mr. Monkey. Which brings us to number 6, who is Drew. Terra captains are Tornadus T, Volcanion, and Quilladin. Now, typings wise, you're not missing any essential typings. Electric is nice to have, but not necessary technically. Speed tiers also look pretty fine. There is a gap between Annihilate and Volcanion, which can be a little bit annoying, but it's okay. And then the gap between Quilladin and Volcanion is not too important because most of these mons run Adamant or Modest anyways. Then, for the offensive core, we have physically Arceus, we have Tornadus Therian, we have Garchomp, we have Annihilate, some niche Volcanion sets, and some Makalola sets. Especially we have Tornti again, Arceus again, Starmie, Volcanion again, and some niche Garchomp sets. But very niche Garchomp sets. You don't want to run special Garchomp too often.
No, Mega Garchomp can do it more, but yeah, regular Garchomp, not really.
Yeah. Then for the defensive core, you have Tornti, which is a good splashable defensive mon. Arceus obviously can run defensive sets. Starmie can run some defensive sets. Garchomp can run defensive sets. Tinkaton can run defensive sets. Annihilate not so much. Volcanion can run defensive sets though. Quilladin, if you ever bring it with Eevee is obviously defensive. Then you have Makalola, which is a good special defensive splash Pokemon. And then Swirlix is there, I guess.
It exists. It
It
exists.
exists.
It's there to in one matchup effort sticky webs.
Yeah, basically. For the support, Hazard support is pretty great. You have Tinkaton, which obviously rocks very reliably and takes that off Garchomp's plate sometimes. So Garchomp can either go offensive or in a spike on a spike set, and even then you still have some Monset. If you want to, Arceus could carry the rocks, or Annihilate can do it. And even Quilladin can carry spikes if you want it. You have the sticky webs with Swirlix, which will maybe come in one matchup. You do have pretty good removal as Starmie is a good spinner, and then you have some, like Torn is an amazing defogger, and you have good backup defoggers in Volcanion and Arceus. Momentum could be a little better, can't lie, because the momentum consists basically of 3 mons. So that could be better. Your wish support is Swirlix, which is not really wish support. And a lot of your mons would appreciate the wish support, for example, the Garchomp, then the Tinkaton, obviously, the Volcanion, those all appreciate wish support, so could be nice if you got that. You have Trick Room setters, but you don't really have a Trick Room mode, as Muck is not the best Trick Room abuser there is. And then the mons that have knockoff can click it reliably. So I do think the support is passable, but obviously some improvements can be made. The hazard and removal support is probably the best part about it, though.
I really do like the hazard. I think I rated this higher than you, if I remember correctly, because I really do like the hazard support with Annihilate, because forcing teams to click defog is really good for Annihilate.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, and also the spike support will put stuff in range for E-Speed banded Arceus as well.
Yeah, the E-Speed RC is definitely one of the most dangerous sets to watch out for, especially since some people don't have a Ghost type.
Yep.
But yeah, I do think Drew can use this team pretty well. So at number 6 we have Drew, and number 4 we have Rapid Flames. Weird logo, can't lie. Terra Captains are
Yeah, that's a
GU
weird.
and Landorus T.
Good Terra Captains.
Yeah. Typings wise, you're missing 5 typings. None are really essential, but grass and electric are sometimes nice to have. Speed tiers wise,
I would point out on the typings. Their ghost resist are a Chi, U, and a Smeargle.
yeah.
That is a bit of a problem.
I did want to get into that on defensive core, but yeah, Smeargle and Chiyu being the ghost type switch-ins is not ideal. Anyways, speed tiers look pretty fine. No too big gaps. Obviously, there's a huge gap between Mega Rayquaza and Deoxys Speed, but not too many mons in there. There are some, and you will have to watch out for them. But I think you can somewhat work around it with like Scarf sets, so I think it's okay.
Yeah.
Then for the offensive core, we have physically Mega Rayquaza, Landorus T. That's it physically. And especially we have Mega Rayquaza again, we have Chi-Yu, we have some special Lando T sets, we have Golden Go. And in these situations, the Oxus can run offensive as well on either side, but it's better on the special side with something like Nasty Plot, for example.
I will say, after looking at some of these teams as well, Mega Rayquaza and Landorus T, especially with Landorus T with Terra Flying, actually looks super threatening. So a lot of the teams we've looked at do not even have Flying Resist. So Dragon Ascent just spamming into teams, Terra Blast on both sides from like basically Landorus T spamming into teams. I think this is obviously on paper. I think that we rate the offense highly, but I think Rapid will just take advantage of a lot of teams and just press nuke buttons with Flying Terra and Flying type moves.
Yeah, what I also don't understand, why the fuck did you guys let this man have Mega Rayquaza at pick 9?
Yeah, that's kind of insane. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that's
Like,
kind
how did it get that far?
like
What got picked before it?
like unless like that's at least how it's like put in the doc. Let me actually see how the draft order came about.
Because I can see Arceus Fairy going, Calyrex Shadow Rider, Primal Groudon.
He was pick
That's about it.
8 and got Mega
Okay, what
Rayquaza.
went before him? What
Uh,
went before him?
Fire Bro,
Yeah.
who
What
took
did he pick?
Calyrex Shadow, viable.
That's fair. I can expect that.
Diamond
That's
Samurai
fair.
took Marshadow, okay.
That's yeah, I can sum that.
Samuel, who nobody took over for, took Giratina Origin. Eh, I don't.
That's a weird ass choice. Yeah, that's horrendous.
Yeah.
Like,
Rhino Shark took Miraidon and Deifuka took Koraidon, both understandable picks.
yeah, that's valid.
Silver Ruby took Zacian Crown, which it's not as good as it used to be, but still a good pickup. Then Mr.
Yeah, I
Monkey, who
understand that
took
one.
Groudon Primal, and then it was the Mega Rayquaza. So it should have never made it that low. I can't lie, but it did.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, to be fair, the only one of those that's really wild is the what was the pick? It was
Uh,
the only one that's
the Marshadow and the
yeah,
Giratina
Marsh. I
Origin.
mean, no, Guillotine Origin is the only one that's the other ones I can get. So I can kind of see why. I mean, and the Guillotine Origin though should not be going before Mega Rayquaza. Like, geez, no,
Yeah,
that's not even close to like Mega Rayquaza level.
yeah. Anyway, so let's continue with Rapid's team. For the defensive side, you have some Deoxys speed sets. Cryogonal on the special defensive side, then Lando T, obviously. Golden Go can be pretty bulky. And then you have Aloe plus Weezing. Generally, a lot of monsters I would consider bulky as well, because Mega Rayquaza also is pretty bulky, considering it also removes like the flying types, like the uh, dragon type weaknesses of itself, or what was it with Delta
No, it's the fly.
flying
It's the
types?
flying weakness. Yeah, so it's only weak to Ice and Fairy.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's Ice, Dragon, and Fairy.
yeah. So that's pretty good. Also considering it has pretty decent defensive stats. Yeah. I do think the defensive core of Lando, Aloe, Weezing is already good enough, and then you have some backup mons who can run defensive sets, so I do think that works very well. For the support, you obviously have every mon you have that has knockoff can click knockoff except Cryogonal, but to be fair, it doesn't have too many moves to click, so sometimes you might even fit on that knockoff on it. And then you have a Trick Room clicker, but not something that abuses the Trick Room, so if you click Trick Room, it's probably just to get rid of the opposing Trick Room. You have okayish momentum. You have it on 4 months. Yeah, 4 months.
Can you double check something for me? Does Deoxys get imprisoned?
It does.
Oh, okay, so that yeah, that's basically what you can do as well.
Yeah.
Do imprison Trick Room.
Yeah. You have Wish support, which is actually pretty good, especially for something like the Weezing, Galar, and Delando, which don't have reliable recovery, so you do help them with that. The removal is pretty good. You have monster can click Defog, and you have Cryogonal, which can also click the Rapid Spin if needed be. Hazard setting, also Rayquaza never clicks the rocks, but the rest can click rocks or spikes reliably, so I do think this team
I didn't
works
even,
very well.
I didn't even know Rayquaza got rocks.
Apparently
Like
it
that's
does.
new information. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's never clear. I honestly, I think the hazards maybe one other mon, but honestly, I think it's fine. I like they have a rapid spin mon as well. I think the rapid spin mon helps, even if it is cryogonal. Probably needs Terra to be a good mon. I wouldn't change the Terra captains because the Terra captains are just nuke buttons.
Yeah, neither would I. I think they are great as they are. But yeah, that is Mr. Rapid Flames at number 5. Number 4, we have your glorious owner of AGDL, Jay Fuka.
This was a unique team. I actually do like this team. It is like a Sun mode heavy team, but I think it works because I think me and Sully helped him a bit with it as well, and I
Yeah.
think Whipside did.
So, for Terra Captains, we have Iron Moth, Walking Wing, and Libani. So, basics. You're not missing any essential typings. Psychic and Rock are both not necessary typings, so you're good on that front. Then speed tiers look pretty good. Nothing really to complain about. There's a bit of a gap between Iron Moth and Koraidon, but not too many mons in that. But do watch out. And then between Skuntank and Corviknight is a little bit of a gap, but again, not too many mons in there. So I do think the basics are very, very good on this team. Just maybe filling the speed gap between Koraidon and Iron Moth could be nice. But yeah, that's my only big gripe about the basics. Then, for the offensive core, physically we have not Iron Moth, Koraidon, some niche Zorakisui sets, some niche Walking Wake sets, Glalie, Mega, Livani, and some niche Corviknight sets. Especially we have the Iron Moth, then Zorakisui, Walking Wake, Sandy Shocks, Glalie again, and some specific Clefable sets.
Mm.
Physicals I could definitely be
No.
improved because it's mostly on Koraidon there.
Yeah, I will say this. The Walking Wake, if I remember correctly, and I think I've seen it on some YouTube draft videos as well, you can EV it. So I think it gets an attack boost, but I think you have to fuck with its stats quite a bit for it to work. But it does also get Dragon Dance. And Sorok, Hisui, Swords Dance sets can catch people off guard. I've even used it a couple of times. And Pate, who is our glorious leader in the other division, has used it and actually had some success with it. So if Pate can use it, Jay Fucker can definitely use it.
Exactly.
Hashtag Pate shots in every video.
Yeah. For the defensive core, this is probably a weakness of the team because the defensive core only consists of basically Corviknight and Clefable. Obviously, Sandy Shocks can run bulkier sets. And then there's like stuff like Skuntank, which can be niche, bulky. But it's mostly Corviknight and Clefable because the other mons, especially Sandy Shocks without Terra, is not as bulky as you think because it does have some big weaknesses. And then for support, Hazard support is pretty good. You have Clef and Sandy Shocks for rocks. You have spikes with Sandy Shocks and Glalie, and then you have some niche T-Spike setters, and you even have Sticky Webs if necessary. Removal, while you have the best Defogger in the game, you don't have a spinner, so that's a minus.
Yeah.
Momentum support is very good. You have 4 U-turners, you have a Volt Switcher, you have a Flip Turner, you have a Teleport Mon, and even a Baton Pass Mon, so that's all pretty good. You have Wish support, which is nice. You have mons that all can reliably click knockoff, except for Wake sometimes, but like the rest can't fit knockoff on their sets. Yeah, and obviously one big thing to mention is the Sun support. Sun supports the Walking Wake, the Sandy Shocks, the Libani, and even something like Iron Moth gets supported by Sun just because its fire moves will get even harder to switch into.
Yeah. Also, Livani Swords Dance Chlorophyll, if you use right, is actually not a joke. I've actually seen Penis do work with that as well and dick people down with it.
I think it was my second highest kill leader in HBF, to be fair.
Fucking hell, that's insane.
Yeah.
Like it can actually do. It surprisingly hits harder than you think it does. You're like thinking, oh, it's a 1 point mod, and then it just suddenly Swords Dance to your face, and like, oh shit, this is actually a problem.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Jafika seemed very good. Maybe a little Sun reliant, but I think still very good. Which brings us to number 3, which is Ball Diddleman.
That's an amazing name.
I think they went by Agent of Chaos before, but on the doc it said Ball Diddleman, so I took that. Yeah, for Terra Captains we have Dragonite, Iron Crown, and Greedent. So, typings. You're not missing any necessary typings. Fighting and Fire are nice to have, but not necessary. Bug is obviously a shit typing, so you don't need it. Speed tiers are very good. Nothing to complain about with the speed tiers, really. Only the gap between Mega Bayonet and Donphan, but again, the monsters are those speed tiers that they run Modest and Adamant anyways. So yeah, for the offensive core, physically we have Chien-Pao, Arceus Fairy, Lycanroc, Dusk, Dragonite, Mega Bayonet, and Donphan. Especially we have Arceus Fairy. Again, we have the Iron Crown, we have the Roserade, we have some niche Rotom Wash sets and some niche Dragonite sets. And
Can I
even
ask a question? Does Arceus get play rough?
probably.
I'm going to check now because just because that makes it slightly weak on the physical side if it doesn't get stab on the physical sides. It's still Arceus, but fairy.
No, it does not get
It doesn't
play rough.
get play rough, to be fair. Yeah, okay, so that does make it a bit weaker on the physical. I would argue that it's mostly going to come special a lot of the time because it gets coverage for that, like judgment.
I mean, it can still run
Might
physical
come,
though, just because it
yeah.
also gets sword
Oh,
stance and a shit ton of moves.
actually, yeah, it can just probably even run mix in some matchups like Iron Valiant.
Yeah. Offensive core is pretty good. Can't really complain about anything. Like, you have something for every situation. Especially, it's maybe a little bit reliant on the Terra Crown because Roserade is not a really reliable special attacker, and Arceus Fairy seems more like a defensive piece here than an offensive piece, but you do you. And then we get to the defensive core. As mentioned before, the Arceus Fairy seems like a good defensive piece here. Iron Crown can run defensive, especially with Terra. Roserade is pretty bulky on the special side, then Rotom Wash, obviously a pretty bulky Pokemon. Donphan and Greedent can help with the bulk as well. Yeah, so all pretty good. And then we get to the support. Hazard setting support is pretty decent. You have 3 Rockets and you have Spikes and T-Spikes. Removal, you have a Spinner and you have 3 Defoggers, all good. Momentum is a huge issue because you only have Volt Switch momentum. And that's not reliable, my guy. Because while ground types don't like to switch into Rotom Wash, they can switch into Iron Crown if it's not a Terra type that hits ground types for super effective damage. So be careful there because you basically have to hard switch most of your mons out, which you ideally don't want to do that much. But you do have healing.
Unironically, this.
Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, it does have. Unironically, this team is probably would be the best team if it had a bit more pivoting because it's a very good team even with the support being that low. Like it's still a great team, but it really does lack pivoting.
Yeah. We also have healing, which with Arceus trick room for like niche offensive dawn fan situations. Both mons that have knockoff can click it reliably. And one more thing I want to mention is that in any AG format, Mega Bayonet is always amazing, just because of Prankster debuffs. And I think, as it like on the dog, Mega Bayonet seemed to be like their first pick.
I mean, I respect it. I don't know if it's the best first pick, but I respect it. I agree with you. It's a very good pick in this format.
Yeah.
And also, there are some teams as well that just are not equipped to deal with ghost types. And Mega Bayonet just gets the Swords Dance off. Even just Shadow Sneak can probably start claiming get kills like on some teams as well.
Yeah, and let's not think about the situation where it gets a Sword Stance and a Trailblaze off. Then some teams are in huge trouble.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like this team. Especially on the offensive side, it's pretty amazing. And even defensively, it has some very good uses. Support obviously could be improved. Like the momentum is the big minus, but I do think this team is pretty great. So yeah, Ball Diddleman, number 3. Which brings us to Lols, number 2. With the Terra Captains Ogerpon, Wellspring, Zapdos, Galar, and Muk. So, typing wise, you're not missing any necessary typings. Dragon would be nice to have, but it's not necessary. And speed tiers wise, also no too big gaps. The gap between Rotom and Zapdos might look big, but it actually perfectly closes. So, no real complaints here. There's like
Yeah.
a little bit of a gap between Ogerpon and Spectre, and obviously the gap between Florges and Muck, but those are not too important gaps. Looking at it, because like for example the Ogerpon Spectre gap, let me look at what mons were run. It's not a lot of mons. It's basically Pidgeot Mega, Tornadus, Naganadel, Greninja, Noivern, Meowscarada, Iron Boulder. Oh, those can't even run. That my bad. So it's from Swellow, Kilowattrel, Weavile, Marshadow, Darkrai, Talonflame, Shaman Sky, Zamazenta Crowned, and Ultra Necrozma. That's all.
Yeah. Not many. They're like honestly, it's quite bad. But and also you can do stuff with some of these mons as well to counter for that. There is actually a lot of. I think there's a lot of options on this team.
Yeah, definitely. Let's jump to the offensive core, where physically you have the Ogerpon, Wellspring, and the Zapdos Galar, which are both Terra, which I think is really nice. Especially, I really fuck with Zapdos Galar with Terra. And then you also add to that the Duskmane Necrozma and some niche Tinglu or Muk sets. And especially you have Spectre, of course, then you have Terrapagos, Rotom Heat, and Necrozma Dusk can run some special sets as well, and Florges as well. So I do think the offense is pretty good. Especially it could be a little improved because it might rely a little too heavy on straight up sweeping, because I feel like Spectre and Terrapagos are more used as sweepers than breakers, but you could obviously use them as breakers if you wanted to.
Yeah, Terrapagos is a lead choice spec set can actually stun some teams as well if used right.
Yeah. And then for the defense, of course, pretty amazing. You have Tinglu, of course. You have Florges, which helps the Tinglu. Then you have Dusk main Necrozma. You have Rotom Heat. You add to that like the Ogerpon, which can take hits. The Zapdos can take hits. The Rotom Heat takes hits, obviously. Muck takes hits as well. So the only mon that is not necessarily bulky enough to take hits is Spectre, but you can invest enough bulk into it because it's so fast that you will be able to take some hits as well. So I do think the bulk is the defensive side is very good. You also don't have any really big weaknesses. It seems like every weakness is covered in some sort of way, so I do think that is pretty good. And then we get to the support. The hazard support, obviously amazing. You have a Tinglu, which is just a hazard bot, basically. Then you add to that some backup hazard setting with Ogerpon, Duskmane, Necrozma, and Terrapagos. You even have T-Spikes with the Muck. Removal is also good because you have one of the best spinners in Terrapagos and then two good defoggers. Momentum could be a little better because while you have Baton Pass on Florges and Pyukumuku, you sometimes can't fit those moves. And Pyukumuku, I guess, but how often are you bringing that shit?
I would count on this. I would count on this. So this is probably me glazing a load here, but in this format, I don't hate Pukumuku as a pick. So I've seen a friend of mine do work with it, and I think in this format it makes a lot of sense because it can do unaware stuff, it can do haze, it can basically taunt, it can basically shut down a lot of mons, and then you just basically bat and pass out and go into an actual mon as a slow pivot.
Yeah.
So I think Pukumuku will come to a couple of games. There'll be a couple of matchups where it fits perfectly, and it's a really good support mon.
Yeah. And then for offensive momentum, we have Zapdos, Ogerpon, and Rotom Heat, which two of your Terra captains are momentum ones, which is okay, but you ideally want a little bit more momentum, but I think it's fine. You do have two reliable knockoff clickers. You have a Trick Room clicker, but no real abuser. But I do think the support is pretty well on this team, especially the Wish is very great for the Tinglu and the Rotom Heat, and even Terrapagos, they all appreciate the Wish a lot. Yeah, this team is pretty great, honestly. Not a lot to complain about this team. No big weaknesses, no big speed gaps. Like, the only thing that I would say is maybe a little bit more momentum, but I think even that is pretty fine with where it is, with how the team plays.
Yeah, I mean it's a pretty good team.
Yeah, and if you kept track, you know who comes at number one, but here it is. It is Career Door. With the Terra Captains Landorus Incarnate, Raging Bolt, and Persian. Now then, typings-wise, you're not missing any essential typings. Psychic Rock and Ice are not important typings. Speed tiers are also pretty good. No gaps to mention. The gaps are all seem perfectly closed. There's a gap between Grimstone and Pharaoh, but of course that's not really important. So yeah, basics are filled amazingly well. Can't really complain. Like even though yeah, like your normal type is a pretty shipmon and kind of a fake speed tier sometimes, you can bring it technically. And you do have a good dark type as a backup ghost type switch, and so nothing to complain about with that. For the offensive core, it's very amazing. Physically, you have Genesect, you have Quaquaval, you have some niche Grimmsnarl sets, and you have some niche Landorus sets. Especially, you have Mega Gengar, you have Landorus, you have Genesect, you have Moltres, you have Raging Bolt with Terra. So, very, very offensively threatening, and a lot of mons bounce off each other pretty well. Especially something like the Landorus and the Genesect, they work very well in cohesion with one another, I think. And the Gengar obviously also being there to trap something the others cannot break is very great. The defensive core is Ferrothorn, then Moltres, some Raging Bolt variants, some Grimmsnarl sets, obviously. And niche Genesect sets can also be defensive, but more offensively minded Mon as well. So the defense could be a little improved, but I think it's okay with where it is. You of course have to watch out for the 4x weakness, 4x weakness fire Pokemon, but you have Moltres for as a switch in for that, and the Raging Bolt as well.
Yeah.
And then for support, hazard setting, you have Ferrothorn, which is one of the best hazard setters. Lando in a pinch can click rocks as well. And T-Spikes is actually a viable move on Gengar. You have a spinner, which is not necessarily a great spinner, but you have it. And then you have a good defogger and a backup defogger in the situations where needed. You have lots of momentum, which is very good on this team because it's obviously a more offensively minded team. You have a lot of knockoff clickers, which most of them can click knock reliably, except Gengar. You have Parting Shot as well, which helps the team in some sense. You have Prankster Screams.
Just to add, I just double checked. Persian doesn't get a parting shot. Not like that really matters that much, but yeah, Persian doesn't get a parting shot.
That's the Alolan version. That's my doctor sees Persian as the same mon.
Yeah, no, so that's why I double checked. So I was there like, just regular Persian gets parting shot because that makes it a little better.
It's just the Alolan
But
version. Then, one thing to note about the support: a Wisher could have been cool, but I guess I see why you cannot fit one. But it could have been cool, especially for like the Pharaoh and the Grimmsnarl who don't have reliable recovery. But Moltres can recover, so I think it is okay. But yeah, I really fuck with this team, especially the Mega Gengar that traps in mons that Genesect Orlando cannot deal with is pretty amazing. So yeah,
yeah, I think it's a really good team overall.
Yeah, I do think so too. Corridor definitely went for a great team. Also, some mons that can do both physical and special in Lando and Genesect. I do think this team was crafted very well and with good reason. What could be improved? Maybe the hazard situation and Wish, of course, those would be nice. And maybe some more core defensive pieces, but I do think with the screen support Grimmsnarl provides, you will be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think overall it's a really good team. I definitely think the number one team we ranked is probably the best team overall.
Yeah, I do think so too. Again, take these rankings with a grain of salt. I have not said this in the beginning because, again, we are just some mediocre draft league players who rank teams based on what we see.
And who I don't really play Uber's formats, I'll be honest.
I don't either, but I know a little bit about them on, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I actually had some success in one, like the other one I played, thanks to Callum carrying me and just telling me basically what to draft.
So yeah,
it was just like counter team the shit out of everyone.
Bruh, that is a Callum.
It worked. It actually worked. It worked. I was like pick 16, so I couldn't get any top mons. So I just basically drafted like Tapu Kolo and Iron Valiant, and then like low tiers were all just mon to counter specific Ubers.
Yeah. But yeah, those are your PRs. Again, take it with a grain of salt. You could be 16th and still make playoffs or some shit. These are just rankings. Don't take them too seriously. But yeah, thank you for watching. Hazards are important, people, since a lot of people do not like hazards apparently here.
So it's a whole different draft of Nate's.
Yeah. Any last words from your side, Roy?
Yeah, I would just like to say that there definitely is something. I would say I guarantee, like knowing how rankings as well, one of the bottom three teams will make playoffs just because their team is so offensive, it will catch people off guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, just because we ranked your team the worst doesn't mean that you're a bad player. There'll be players who can overcome a bad team and make a bad team work. I do it all the time, so and I'm not a good player, so
All the time might be an overstatement. You've missed playoffs in CPL twice in a row
yeah.
now.
Yeah, good point on that. Actually, need to start drafting good teams again.
But yeah, thanks for watching. These were the PRs, and I hope you enjoy your season. And again, don't be salty. We ranked you in that place. These are just rankings. Don't take them too serious. Anyways, we were the Clodcast, and we wish you a good time. Goodbye.